Welcome back to Amateurs, the podcast. This is episode 9, where we focus on the draft.
Yep. I'm Logan.
I'm Rhett.
So the draft just happened, 2-day draft this past week, and we're gonna go over some winners, losers, some surprises, and then what we feel are some steals. We each kind of have a couple for each category, and we'll go through it one by one. Let's start off positive note: the winners of the draft.
So, one of the winners I had was Utah.
Okay.
They picked Cody Williams at 10. I'm not a huge fan of Cody Williams. He went in the range he was expected to go. I don't know what he adds. I don't know how ready he's going to be. But I was excited by their other two picks. They got Isaiah Collier late in the first round and Kyle Filipowski early in the second, which you'll hear more about later. Collier, I think, is a guy who can contribute right away. He's a lead guard, a true lead guard who can also score, although his shooting is suspect at times. And Filipowski, he's got first round talent.
I think all three of those guys are lottery level talent, and they got him in 32 picks.
Right.
So I would definitely say they got some major steals.
And Filipowski, although they're different athletes, does have some of the skill set that Lauri Markkanen does.
Yeah.
So
sure.
if they're going to move on from Markkanen, this is a way to maybe protect that.
It's definitely a good start to the rebuild. Being in Salt Lake City, not a big free agent market, you have to accumulate talent to the draft. Yeah. And like I said, 3 lottery level talents in those picks. So definitely a good draft for Utah. One of my winners is the Lakers. Now, obviously, they had Dalton Connect fall in their lap at 17, which is like probably the best pick of the draft, just value wise, because he's a top. I had him. We both had him high in our top tens. Everyone basically did, and to have him fall to 17, he's a contribute right away. I think he'll probably average 13, 14 uh, right away. And then also, the Bronny pick is going to get a lot of criticism, but they did secure LeBron James retiring as a Laker, and he's going to resign. So,
yeah, polarizing pick, Bronny. I agree totally on Connect. I think he couldn't have fallen into a better spot. He's going to play right away. He fills a need. He's a good shooter. Bronny, I have real reservations about.
I'm not saying they're a winner because of the pick of the player,
right?
But they're guaranteed that LeBron James will retire a Laker, and that's a win.
Sure, and I agree they're a winner. We agreed on this one. We never have touched on Bronny James. Frankly, only one player in this draft has done less. And yes, he does have the heart issue, but even at Sierra Canyon, never a big time scorer. I wasn't particularly impressed by the combine. Everybody's now raving about it. I just think the narrative has been distorted here. Great kid. I don't fault him for coming out. I don't fault him for wanting to play in the NBA. But if his last name was Smith, he doesn't get drafted.
Yeah, it's true.
So one of the winners that was unique to me was Washington. First, they got Alex Sarr, who fills an immediate need. He replaces Daniel Gafford. He has a defensive skill set that plays right away. So from a pure need standpoint, great pick. He does have a pretty high ceiling.
Yeah, for sure.
And then they took 2 guys that I'm not as high on, Bub Carrington and Kaishan George.
Those 2 picks are what prevented me from having Washington as a winner because, well, I think Sarr is a great pick. He's probably the number 1 prospect in this draft. The fit with Atlanta with Rui Sachet, but George and Carrington won't play really right away, most likely.
But this is a perfect place for them to develop.
Yeah, but I don't think both have the highest of ceilings.
No, I agree. Again, I'm sold more on Sarr, and then if you add 2 guards, one pans out, it's a home run draft.
Yeah, I hear you, but my next winner, I'm actually just gonna go player. different spin is AJ Johnson. Uh, and the Bucks are actually not a winner because of this. He's the winner. He was supposed to be a late second round pick, and he actually got drafted in the first round. Way to get that money, young fella. I thought his situation reminded me a lot of like Anthony Simmons with like going the alternative college route, and then he's obviously 2 years away from even being like a thought with the Bucks. But he's a winner. He was cheesing hard at the draft. He was happy to be there.
Yeah, I can't disagree. Um,
I mean, all these kids are winners when they get
yeah,
drafted, except for a couple might have.
very few people had him going first
Yeah.
round. Some didn't have him going at all.
Drafted. Yeah.
Averaged 3 points in the NBL. Okay. I had a unique winner, and that's Denver. I thought they did a good bit of business in getting Deron Holmes.
Who I predicted going to Denver in our mock draft, the Zeke Naji pool.
He did. I think he's got a well-rounded skill set. I think he fills a need for Denver. They do need a backup big,
100%.
and I see him as someone who is an insurance policy for Aaron Gordon. When Gordon becomes too expensive, Holmes could probably slide in. He's a good enough athlete.
What's enticing about him is his shooting.
Right.
Really turned a corner this past year, day in.
Yeah. So I thought that was a win. They get a productive player. Experts had him going much later, but they got the guy they got.
Late first round. Wasn't that big of a reach.
No.
And my last winner are the Minnesota Timberwolves. They obviously had a great defense last year, and we can see with the direction of the draft, they're going all in on offensive firepower. They fleeced the Spurs for Rob Dillingham, who's probably the best ISO scorer in the draft. They got Terrence Shannon Jr. late at 27, who we all know can flat out score, and I think is a steal, especially considering he was acquitted. So I really like their two pickups, the direction they're moving in. And I think both those guys will help them right away.
Yeah, they extended their bench. I agreed that Minnesota was one of the winners of this draft. Losers?
We're setting our winners. All right, let's go on
Set.
loser. I know he has a ton of losers.
Well, I think the first loser is the NBA because this is a weak draft. We can't reinforce that enough. There are very few, if any, sure things. There's guys that have certain elite NBA skills, but there's so many question marks.
Yeah, I mean, but that's not the NBA's fault, but it is. A lot of the fans were like, "Who is this guy?" This was not the casual draft. You had to, do your research beforehand. But who's your first loser?
So my first real loser is Detroit, and we agree on this one.
Yeah.
I saw Ron Holland as a big reach at 5. He has so many questions other than being a bouncy athlete. He's an excellent athlete. And he was projected to go first early in the draft cycle. But here's the problem. He doesn't space the floor at all.
Yeah. And I wrote loser. I wrote Pistons floor spacing.
Right.
It's going to be an ugly game next year.
And they have a guy very similar to him, although I think he's more well-rounded in Osar Thompson.
I disagree that they're similar, but I agree that they're both non-shooters at this stage in their career.
Both non-shooters are very athletic. I don't see how you can play him with the roster as currently constructed. I think this was an overreaction to the Boston Celtics phenomenon of having wing.
Yeah.
New York certainly went all in on that. But those guys can actually shoot.
Yeah, I mean, think about this. Their potential starting lineup next year is Cade, Jaden Ivey, Asar Thompson, Ron Holland, and Jalen Duren. And like 4.5 of those guys can't shoot. It's a big yikes.
Yeah, it's almost like they know something about a rule change coming. They're going to move the line back 5 feet or something. I don't know. The Bobby Clintman pick, who knows?
He can actually shoot a little bit, but he's not a starter or probably a contributor. this year. And I'm not saying they're in a win now. They don't need immediate contribution.
Yeah, but he's not enough to take them
Yeah,
out of the losing
yeah, I
category.
agree with you there. My biggest loser of the draft is the San Antonio Spurs. They drafted Steph Castle, Harrison Ingram, and Juan Nunez. And when you have a guy like Wemby, I don't care how high you draft, it's about fit. Because you have this generational talent that you don't have to draft best player available. You draft someone that you can build around Wemby. And while I really love two of their picks as players and Steph Castle and Harrison Ingram. And I don't know anything about Juan Nunez. I don't think many people did.
Yeah.
Um, I love two of those guys as players, but they don't fit in the Spurs' immediate need for shooting and playmaking. And they actually drafted Dillingham, who wasn't like a perfect fit with catch and shoot shooting, but he at least provided playmaking and some creation off the bounce. And he in pre-draft process he was excited to potentially be a Spur and play with Victor Wembanyama, and then they shipped him away to Minnesota for two third graders. And then they also drafted Furphy, who would have provided shooting, and then sent them to Indiana for Juan Nunez, who's probably not going to play next season and is probably a draft and stash type of guy. I think they really missed big, and they had two lottery picks. They could have filled needs, right? Like Dalton Connect would have been perfect. And it kind of looks like they're tanking again, maybe for Cooper Flag. My main takeaway is hashtag free Victor. I don't care. It's been 1 year. Free Victor.
Yeah, I think they're going all in on capturing the flag, which is going to be the oft repeated line throughout this upcoming season. I didn't understand the draft at all. Look, Stephon Castle, good player. He has a skill that plays right away. He's a good defender.
I think he'll be a really good NBA player. He just doesn't do what the Spurs need.
Yeah, they had, in my mind, they had three real gaping holes. I think they need a center, whether it's a backup to Victor or plays alongside him. I think they need a shooter.
Shooting, just period.
Period, yeah. And they need a lead guard, and they got none of it. The Dillingham pick is one of the reasons I have them as a loser. I too like Ingram. I had heard about Nunez.
Like theoretically, he could be a good. He's great in the pick and roll from what I've heard, and he could play alongside Victor, but he won't because he's not going to be on in.
Well, the rumor was he wasn't willing to come to the NBA. Now, if that changes because he's playing with Victor, maybe.
Yeah, regardless, he's not a play right away type of guy. He's not a shooter. I looked at the statistics.
Right.
So, yeah, they just don't fit around Victor right now.
Yeah, the problem I had with Dillingham, when they drafted him, I immediately said, well, that's strange. He's not a Pop player. Pop has never had.
I agree with you there. Okay, but he's not a Pop player, but Pop had guys that are super creative like Manu that break the mold. And I'm not saying Rob is Manu, but when you saw Manu, he's not a Pop player. He's doing behind the back Euro steps. And Rob is, he does it whatever he wants.
Yeah, but Manu's fundamentals were solid.
Okay, Rob Dillingham is the best. Let's not debate his talent.
His talent on one side of the ball is he is a electric athlete.
He's with the ball in his hands.
With the ball,
he's probably the quickest guy with the ball in his hands since De'Aaron Fox.
Agreed. He's not an especially good passer.
I don't think that's a weakness of his game, though. And like I said, I didn't think
at that height it has to be.
No, but he was not like some bad passer. He's just not a pass first guard. He's a shooter. He's a scorer. And I didn't say that he was a perfect fit, but I said of all their picks, he would have been the best fit, and he at least provide.
No, my point isn't. I just don't understand it. You're trading down the road for a team like Minnesota when Edwards will still be in his prime, when some of these guys they've just picked will theoretically still be there. That's a luxury pick. That's something that Boston could do, or a team that is already in win now. You don't mortgage your future.
Yeah, for 2031. Those guys are in middle school right now.
Bizarre. If you didn't want Dillingham,
then don't draft Dillingham.
or trade the pick out. maybe
Yeah.
that was. I don't
I don't get
understand
the
it
move
at
at all.
all. So one of my uh, losers here was not a huge loser, but I did think Chicago missed on Bucelis.
I don't think that's a. So you would have Chicago as a
They
loser
are. I'll
for?
tell you. I'll
Did
tell you
they
what.
pick anyone else besides Buzelis?
No, it was just
I
Bucelis.
don't think that's a loser pick.
Where they got him isn't the problem. The problem is he is a horrific fit on this team. He, like Ron Holland, cannot shoot.
Okay, but it's the difference in cannot shoot. He shot I know 22% from three this year,
Correct.
but that was never a knock on his game until this year.
But once you're defended by athletic pros,
Well, at least he was being defended by athletic pros.
well,
It's G League. Those guys are.
That's what I meant. I'm saying in the G League,
Oh, okay,
he shot
yeah.
22%.
No, but I agree. I hear what you're saying, but I think him and Holland comparing them as shooters is not.
Well, Holland's
shot
doesn't look.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying he's never been labeled as a shooter.
No, but that's my point. You have now Josh Giddey, can't shoot. You have DeMar Rosen, who doesn't shoot from three, although he's a decent shooter mid range. Bucelis, like this.
But I don't think we can label him as a non-shooter.
He shot 22%.
I understand that, but his whole career he's been okay. This guy is 6'10", and he's got skills, and he shot very well in high school.
Again, high school, you're 6'10", you're not getting the same defensive looks. I don't care if you play at Montverde. Those guys, they're very rarely are you going to see a guy
you can at least acknowledge that there's going to be an adjustment period going straight to pros.
Sure.
And I'm not the biggest Buzelis, like a fan of his game or whatever, but I'm just saying there's going to be adjustment high school straight to pros.
I don't like the fit. I don't think he has an elite NBA skill. You can't tell me what his elite NBA skill is.
Probably the best dunker in the draft. Okay. You know what NBA skill is? 6'10", and you can dribble like a guard.
Okay, fair. But to me, I still do not understand what Chicago's doing. If they're in a rebuild, okay, I get the pick a little more because he did slide a little bit.
Ton of potential.
He does. He's got elite size. And he's a hometown kid. I get that. If you're in a rebuild, okay, fine. Maybe this isn't such a bad pick. If you're in where they are in some la la land win now, he's a horrible pick.
But I don't think that's where they are. I just don't think they don't know what they're doing.
That's a problem at the top.
All right. Well, my next loser, hopefully we can agree on this, is the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yep.
I think that they need to realize that they are squarely in a win now mode. I know they were ahead of schedule last year, but they were the 1 seed in the West. They are contenders right now. And having all these assets and picks is all well and good, but until you capitalize on them, they're just for show. And this past couple of years, Sam Presti's like, oh, he has 50,000 draft picks. Well, use them, dude, or trade them to get some. And I like their current roster, but drafting Topic, who's not even going to play with his ACL injury, he doesn't help them at all. And they can use a contributor to get over the hump. And then, I think Dylan Jones was a bit of a reach in the first round. AJ Mitchell, I like him as a player. And I guess they both add guard depth, but they're not
difference makers.
They're not difference makers. And I think that they could have really used all their assets, or at least picked at 12 a difference maker who was going to play this year. And they didn't.
Yeah, they drafted Josh Giddey 2.0.
And I'm a fan of Topic's game, but the thing is, he's got a busted leg. He's not going to play.
Right, he's not going to play. It's a red shirt year. It's a luxury pick, and I don't know they need to be wasting. Where'd they get him? 10? 12? Then they don't need to be wasting lottery picks at this point.
And I heard from another point of view, like, oh, they can afford to take a flyer on a guy, or because they don't need the contribution. They're 1 seed in the West. Well, I hate to tell you, brother, the West is only going to get stronger. I know the Spurs seem like they're tanking, but Victor Wembanyama, the worst we ever going to see him is last year.
Right.
It's only in the way up. Timberwolves going to be nasty. Nuggets still have Jokic. Like, the West is only getting better. So I think you should start capitalizing before, first of all your guys are going to get paid soon,
Mm-hmm.
So okay, they may not need Topic, but they could have got somebody that would have helped.
Yeah, I didn't understand this. It didn't solve any of their problems. I think they need another big. They didn't get another big. They didn't get the shooting they needed because none of these guys are really elite.
Yeah.
I was not impressed by Dylan Jones at the combine. He didn't stand
He's
out.
not gonna have even the ball in his hands like he did at Weber State. So I don't know how he translates the NBA.
Right. And the kid I like the best is probably AJ Mitchell. I'm not saying Topic is a bad player, but he doesn't shoot the ball well, and that's why I drew the Giddy comparison.
No, I've heard that comparison. It's not like the worst thing ever, but I just think he's a better player. Uh, but yeah. So do you have another loser?
Well, I also wanted
Oh,
to say about OKC is you've got all these picks. If there was one guy in the draft, maybe you loved Klingon, maybe you loved Sar, aggregate those picks and get one good player
Yeah.
as opposed to
three non-difference
yeah.
makers.
And the guy's not going to play.
Like I like what Sam Presti's done. Obviously, he had the 1 seed in the West, but dude, like just you have all these picks. It's use them.
Right. So I have three more losers. I think you have.
I have one more.
So
you go.
Charlotte.
Yeah.
This isn't a horrible draft. I happen to like Salawan. He compares well with Risa Shea, but this was the high end of his. Like he wasn't really projected to go this high at 6. I don't know how his play style fits with Brandon Miller. It was sort of a head scratcher.
Did they pick anyone else?
Yeah, they also got KJ Simpson. And the problem with KJ Simpson, he's a good player,
Yeah.
second round pick. He's the shortest guy in the draft. And Charlotte just went through this with another short point guard in Devontae Graham, and they wiped their hands clean and said, all right, we're going to send him
Yeah,
off.
I mean, I hear what you're saying. I just don't think this is a loser situation. I agree Salawan's a reach. I would just think it was more of a miss of a pick than they were like a big loser.
Okay.
But I hear what you're saying. Let me hear one more of yours before I get to my last one.
Phoenix, and this is a criticism. Ryan Dunn is very good on one side of the court.
I would say generational defensively.
Well, perhaps, but we also have to understand where he played because that system of Virginia.
Yeah, but he's like, dude, watching his clips, like, it's ridiculous. But he's also just as ridiculous on the other end of the court for another reason.
Yeah, he might as well just stay on the defense and play 4 and 5. This is a team, Phoenix, that has serious cap problems.
Yeah, they needed to.
Unless you're making minimum, they can't add you. They can't send it. They're already over the second apron. So, and they have two guys who have historically had some injury concerns in Durant and Beal. You needed a guy at this pick. They were originally supposed to pick earlier, and then they traded back.
Yeah.
You need a guy who's going to contribute right away.
And I think that's what like some of these teams were trying to do. Like when they're in the second apron, okay, you get these cheap. Like I think the Knicks did a good job of that.
Excellent. Yeah.
Especially because they just signed OG to that massive contract. They got guys that they can play right away for cheap. And the Suns, I mean, if he can sub out mid possession, he can play right away.
Right.
But that's not how the NBA works. It's not basketball.
And the other kid they got, Oso Iguodaro, I like certain parts of his game, but he doesn't shoot.
Yeah.
Can't shoot free throws.
I mean, he's a good, decent NBA prospect, but.
I mean, where they picked him, that's ideal.
Yeah.
Second round, you take a flyer on this guy and see if he can bring up the weak parts of his game.
I hear you. One of my big losers from the draft, I might put him even at second, is the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't think they've had a good draft since 2013 when they got Giannis. Like, there's been miss after miss after miss. The streak continues with two very confusing picks in A.J. Johnson, who was a winner because he got drafted.
Right. Yeah.
And Tyler Smith. Now, I like Tyler Smith as a player. He was in my mock draft first round. But neither of those guys are going to play right away. And they're, as the second oldest team in the NBA, you need guys, and your window's getting shrinking fast. So you need guys that are going to play right away, and neither of those two will. So it doesn't help them at all.
No, we agreed on this. Johnson's not going to play.
No, I mean, he's
several years.
100, like 65 pounds and 6'6". Like,
Now I do like the Tyler Smith pick. I do think, having been exposed to the G League, I think he was there 2 years now.
Yeah, yeah.
So he does have a borderline elite NBA skill in shooting. I think he can play.
I think, and I mean, he's got a great guy to learn from in Bobby Portis.
Yeah, that's what they said. The comp was, hey, you should look at how Bobby plays.
Yeah.
But they need guys. It's like Phoenix.
They need people to play right
right
now.
away.
Your window is closing. You are old as dirt.
Right. And they didn't. They needed a backup point guard. They still don't have.
And what I think happened with the AJ Johnson situation, the fact that he was at the draft leads me to believe that the Bucks promised.
Yeah.
Which is what they did last year with Chris Livingston. Where's Chris Livingston?
Is AJ Johnson a clutch guy?
I don't know, but
it's bizarre.
But
when they announced
Livingston
that,
was too, and
that's why
he got the
that's why
Bronny treatment last year, where Rich Paul called up other teams and said, "Hey, don't pick him."
Yeah.
Just for him to go last in the draft. But so you have one more loose?
No, that's it.
All right,
we agree because we agreed on
Yeah.
On
So we have a couple surprises that we're going to touch on.
Go ahead.
All right, I'll go. So mine is the green room situation. We had Collier barely making it out of the first round, and then Furphy and Filipowski both falling to the second. Now, while we can argue if they deserve to be first round picks or whatnot, I think this is more the NBA's fault, because why turn this into a 2-day event, and why invite 24 dudes to a 30 pick draft? You're gonna have guys that are like embarrassed because they're in their green room and they don't get picked. But that's not a surprise that we saw that. But the surprise is those three guys falling so hard.
Yeah, and the purported reason why Filipowski.
I don't even want to get into it. It's so dumb.
ESPN floated this out there, and so I'm not going to touch on it. I think it's ridiculous because on a talent standpoint, his talent plays.
And if the story is about his girlfriend who he's been dating for a while. He's been dating his girlfriend through Duke, and the boy balled out at Duke. Yeah. It wasn't like affecting his performance there.
Well, when I heard the rumor, I went to look her up. I was expecting her in her 40s. She's just 6 years old.
Well, we're not going to debate the legality of it, because if it is.
No, it wasn't the legality. I heard the rumor that he was dating someone much older.
I mean, she graduated college in 18 and went to a senior prom at 2022. That's right,
but I was expecting somebody much older. This is not.
She was his babysitter.
Okay, well that's.
But,
thought we were going to touch this.
Well, I mean, you brought it up. So what's the surprise for you?
We touched on some of this. I'm going to go with Justin Edwards.
Yeah.
Justin Edwards was at one time. Last year he was the number one kid.
He's definitely the top three in every website, and then he finished on one. I think ESPN.
Yeah, he was the highest rated player coming into college last year. He went to an NBA factory in Kentucky, and he didn't fail. Like, he averaged 9 points. He had 3
didn't have a good year.
It wasn't great, but it wasn't.
There were some struggles.
Yeah,
you watched him play. He did not. The fit was awful at Kentucky for him, because especially with the emergence of Shepherd, along with Rob.
He's a wing, though.
I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the balls to go around.
Yeah, but he shot.
Reeves averaged 20. Shepherd averaged 12. Dillingham 14. Mitchell was in the 10th. There wasn't, and they had Wagner there who averaged 9. He was never going to get touches there. It was a bad fit.
But he showed well on defense, and he shot well. He shot 36%.
There was inconsistencies. He didn't have a good season.
He didn't have a bad season. He didn't have. He basically doubled Bronny's numbers.
Okay, but that's LeBron James' son.
He did enough in my mind to be.
I agree with you. He should have been taken. And for him to go undrafted, he's the first top 3 recruit in the last 20 years to go undrafted, 1 year removed from high school. So, I mean, it's definitely like, if you look at the president, yeah, he should have been drafted.
Yeah,
because there's been worse that have had worse seasons, in college.
Right.
And this is a weak draft. So, that was a big surprise him not going to draft.
He did sign with his hometown team, Philadelphia, on a 2-way contract. Hopefully he can, rebound and fill it home there. And for my money, it's a decent pickup for Philadelphia. Not knowing who else is going to be on that roster, But if they do add a Paul George, perfect guy
mentor.
to mentor
Yeah.
Justin Edwards.
And I mean, I had said we were discussing when we were watching the draft after he went undrafted, like who can you remember that had their like stock fall from high school 1 year moves.
Yeah.
And one guy that came to mind, obviously the stat says that he's the first in the last 20 years in the top three, but one guy that came to mind was like Trayvon Duval, like number one point guard, had like like you said, by no means a bad season at Duke, and then he went undrafted. And let's hope that Justin Edwards doesn't have the same, like career path as Duval.
Which is none whatsoever.
Yeah, no NBA. Two more surprises for me. I think I touched on one with Dylan Jones at 26 and then Jalen Tyson at 20. I think both of those are reaches, especially Tyson. He probably would have been there in the second round. I was listening to a draft show and they were kind of talking about, for Cavs fans, like, oh, if you want to get excited, if the team picks him at 20, it probably means, no matter who's fallen, it probably means that he's been their guy the whole time, which means they see something in him. But he averaged 1.7 points at Texas, then 10 at Texas Tech, and then he was the guy at Cal. He had a great season statistically, but
I had him in when we did our mock.
He wasn't in either of our first round.
He was.
He was in yours?
The end of my first round.
I don't know.
He's a little unusual fit. His skill set sort of duplicates some of what Max Strus does. He's a shooter. He can shoot.
Yeah, but I think he's not a catch and shoot guy.
No, but I don't know when he gets time. They're not exact. They're a win now team.
I mean, he's older, but I just thought the pick was confusing. I want to touch on some steals.
Yep.
Cool to move into that. Obviously, Dalton Knecht is the biggest steal in the draft. I think we can both agree on.
Yeah, and he was one I had him as a surprise, but
he was
that he fell. Yeah.
Surprised that he fell.
Yeah.
Steal in the pick. Isaiah Collier, who we talked about, 29. I said in my mock draft, guys, why are we overthinking it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then everyone overthinked it. He fell at 29. But I think
they overthinked it. They overthunk it.
No, they overthinked it. This isn't grammar class. This is basketball school. I think the Jazz is a good fit for him because the rebuilding stage. Who's the point guard?
I've been struggling to remember who it is.
I don't think they have a point guard.
I don't.
Keontae George, is he running the one?
No, he's not a one. I don't know. We're gonna throw it up. Collins a two. He's coming off the bench.
We can look it up right now.
I know he's going to say it next is Kevin McCullough was both a surprise and a steal.
Yeah, he was in my steals for sure. I had him in my first round. Did you?
Yes.
Yeah, we both had him in our first round. And I mean, I think he's a guy that like for example, the Suns would perfect on the Suns. He's going to the Knicks, which is a great pickup for them. And the Suns actually traded him to the Knicks. But that's like how we're talking about the second apron teams.
Well, he's a ready-made guy. He plays right away. And I think, obviously the Knicks are very deep at that position, but I think McCullough has NBA skill.
100% agree. And for the people watching about the Utah Jazz, they don't really have a point guard.
Yeah. I think Clarkson is.
They got Chris Dunn, but he's not a start. Like, they don't have a starting point guard. I think I'd perfect for Isaiah Collier. And I think he has the talent. One more steal for me is Enrique Freeman, who's going to the Pacers at 50. He reminds me a little bit of Isaiah Jackson, who they have. But he's a great story, how he went to walk-on, player of the year, G League Combine, and he got the invite to the NBA Combine, showed out there. And he got picked at 50. I really like the kid. He averaged like a crazy double-double. He's not going to probably play a lot for the Pacers, but I think a really good pick, and I think he could be a steal.
Yeah, as we're sitting here, I had a surprise, and that was I didn't really care for ESPN's draft coverage.
Especially day two.
The interviewer didn't know that some guys weren't going there.
It's hard to fault her because of how crazy round 2 was yesterday with the trades.
But they've got to have somebody in their ear saying, well, remember, he's going to
Quinn
Phoenix.
Post was actually traded from the Warriors to 2 other teams and back to the Warriors, which is crazy. But yeah, I agree with you. The coverage wasn't great. I said as a joke the other day, like Mel Kiper, when a 7th round pick, he's like, oh, he reads off the stats. He's like, oh, he's a sleeper. He does this well, does this well. You know, Stephen A. Smith, when he was a 1st round pick, I've never heard of this man in my life.
Who is this man?
And I think, I'm not a fan of it making a 2-day event at all.
I liked it,
but I didn't. The day 2 coverage was awful.
It was.
First of all, they weren't at the event. They were in a separate studio, so we missed some picks because they were talking. Like when they were talking about Bronny, we missed picks. We mixed my boy Mark Tayton announcing some picks because they were too hung up on Bronny 3 picks ago.
Yeah.
And you had it was Woj, Bob Myers, Malika, and then Stephen A. And I mean Stephen A. Like, no offense to him, but he's more of an NBA guy. Like he shouldn't be covering, especially the 2nd-round draft. Like couldn't provide any valuable input. I like the first day, the coverage. Jay Billis always does a great job. I like Richard Jefferson, but I would agree with you. And I do want to get into one thing, considering we made our allegiance to South Florida known.
Yeah.
Majority of our fans so far are Heat fans. Let's give what do you think about the Heat draft?
There were guys we talked when their pick was about to come up. We talked. There was like 4 or 5 guys
for each pick,
that we were really excited. They're like, okay, this would be a win. I like the pick of Ware. I hate the 2nd-round pick.
We'll get into that later. Let's start 1st round.
Ware already has an NBA skill in his defense. He's long. He's very athletic, can maybe stretch it out. I think he'll pair well either as a backup center or with Bam.
I think he might start, to be honest with you, depending on what they do in free agency.
And I think they see a little bit of Bam in him. Bam is a very mobile, way more perimeter, not from a shooting perspective, but he can get out
the ball,
switch, and he can handle. And I don't know if Ware can do that yet. But I wasn't disappointed with the pick. I obviously would have liked to see them take a Connect to immediately.
At the pick 15, going into it, I thought McCain would have been a good fit too.
Yeah.
With Connect on the board, I was Connect first. If we took McCain, I'd be okay with it. But then when they flashed the War Room and you could see in the background the board, I went up to the TV. I said, "Oh no, that says Ware."
Yeah.
And I really want to Connect. This whole time, like, we got to get Connect. If he falls, we got to get him. And he fell. And they went to the Lakers.
I read somewhere that there was concern in the Heat organization about how his defense and Tyler Hero's defense Connect would pair. That they,
first of all,
they didn't want to.
Why is Tyler Hero in our future plans still, Heat Nation? Sleepy Pat. You did a great job with, the Bam contract. The Khalil Ware's not a bad pick. What are we doing, man?
Somebody has to like him.
Who?
Hero. Somebody outside the Heat room
That's true.
has to like him.
That's true.
And that
we're 2 years too late on getting rid of him. But I will say my scouting report on Ware, tools are phenomenal. The second jump is ridiculous. Very low volume on his shot. They shot 40% from 3. It was like an attempt a game, not even. So those 3 big positives. And if Connect wasn't there, I'd really like to pick. However, being a Heat fan and being, knowing about Heat culture, the motor concerns worry me. And he's going to a place that's not he's going to be held accountable. Since high school, he's had these motor concerns. Oregon, he didn't perform well. Transferred. Mike Woodson was able to unlock, a good potential. But I don't know about the motor and how it's going to translate, especially with the Heat. Now, with the 2nd-round pick, we outlined 5 guys, right?
Yeah.
We were 43, and we turned it back to 44. We outlined 5 guys for 43. We said
McCullough,
Duricic,
yep,
Jamal Shed. You said Justin Edwards,
Yeah, I wouldn't mind Justin.
and I think I said Harrison Ingram.
Ingram, right?
Ingram. We said those five. At 43, we drafted Nikola Jurisic, who we both had, I think, in our first round.
Yeah.
We were both very happy with the pick.
Yeah.
We thought Pat was cooking. We was on a roll.
Yeah.
And then they traded back one spot for cash. I doubt the difference in one spot is more than $300,000. Which I don't think you could sign a player in the NBA for that little money. I've loved Jurisic, and he's going to Atlanta. And then we proceeded to pick Pelle Larsson, who best case scenario is a swing man off the bench in a couple years. I think
for Sioux City.
For Sioux City. Sioux Falls. Let's not disrespect our affiliate. I mean, I think the Heat probably think he has Christian Braun potential. I don't think that. I think that's with the Heat. And then, so I did not love that pick at all, especially when all four of our guys, we picked one of them, and then all four of our guys were still on the board.
There was a momentary high five when we picked Heat Lifer Nikola Jurisic.
Yeah, his jersey's up in the rafters at his jersey number 43.
Right next to Michael Jordan's.
He's a Heat lifer. We
now,
appreciate everything you've done for our organization.
The Heat did do some good business in the UDFA market.
Yeah, I really like Zion Pullen. No bias there, but I mean, he's a good player. Led the country assist to turnover ratio. Keshad Johnson.
Yep.
Was projected to be drafted.
Yep.
So that's good signing there. Now, obviously, these guys, I think Pullen could be a backup point guard in the NBA. Keshad Johnson, definitely an NBA athlete. And their summer league team's looking nice.
Yeah.
I want to be competing for the Larry O.B.
No.
Not these summer league trophies.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how Pelle Larsson does.
Christian Braun.
I do want to make one last note, and that was I don't know where to put them, winners and losers. Portland. I love Donovan and Clingan. Love him. We both had him. I had him 1. You had him 2, I think, overall. 4. They got him at 7. He has an NBA defense ready to play, step in right now.
Yeah, 100%.
But, and there's a but, to get tax relief, they gave up draft picks.
With the Wizards trade?
Yes.
Yeah, we didn't cover that in our last video, the mini episode, but the Wizards, Portland, exchanged Dedney Advija, who just had a breakout season, for Malcolm Brogdon, and a good amount of picks.
Yeah. They didn't get enough for Brogdon, because I think Brogdon has value.
I think Portland kind of fleeced them.
No, I mean, Advija's to give up 2 first-round picks and Brogdon?
I like that. I think Washington should have kept Denny in the rebuild process.
He's shown some things.
He had a really good year last
year. He did. It's the first year, though, he shot well.
Yeah, but that makes sense.
Progression. So I don't like a team.
And Brogdon does not fit their timeline at all.
No. You have to move off Brogdon. One of the problems they now have is they have 3 starting level centers.
Yeah, that's the play. They have Clingan, Ayton, and Williams. And initially, in my gut reaction, I had Clingan himself as a loser, because first he fell to 7. He wasn't projected that low. And then he has to compete with DeAndre and Robert Williams. But then, first of all, for Portland to pick him, and they've been infatuated with him since last year. For Portland to pick him, that shows how much faith they have in him, and how much they love him as a player. So maybe DeAndre Ayton's the real loser.
Ayton's contract is very difficult to move.
I'm saying he's the real loser, because he's going to be benched for my boy Donnie.
Yeah, I mean, Williams you can move, but he does have health concerns. I just do not like a team that's in a rebuild shipping out picks. Now, if you didn't...
I mean, they turned into Keyshawn George and Bud Carrington, I think.
I think they got 14 was the Bud Carrington.
Yeah, Bud Carrington and Keyshawn George. That was the Knicks?
I think, they gave up like a later pick.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it. I know they had to get off salary. I get that. They have to shed salary, and they still probably have some work to do. I just don't like the way they went, how much they had to give up.
We can both agree that it's very interesting, but I think we have differing opinions on the trade itself.
Yeah.
I like Denny as a player.
I mean, Brogdon is a pro you plug in.
But all right, first of all, but they don't need guards, bro.
Well, Washington doesn't need a guard. I mean, they need to.
No, I'm talking about Portland doesn't need.
No, I understand that, and Washington doesn't need a guard because they don't want to be good this year.
I mean, they're not going to play Brogdon. He's not playing. You're going to buy him out or something.
Agreed.
There's no, but then they gave him up for Denny Avdija, who I think averaged maybe 20 a game this year.
No, it was less.
All right, but very good season for Bud Carrington and a later pick. And he's 2 years removed from being 3 years removed from being the 7th overall pick. That's not a good return there.
I'm just not sure they're done moving Brogdon.
I think he'll be traded or
he's at worst, second round pick.
He's a good NBA player, but just not on these young teams.
No, it doesn't fit with Washington's timeline at all. It was very curious. I know why Portland made the trade. It was money.
Yeah.
But I didn't love the return. Avdija, I think the jury's still out. He had one good season out of 3.
Yeah, but I would definitely say he's on his way up.
Hopefully for him. I mean, you got to remember, if you're scoring for Washington and Detroit and some of these other teams, those are empty points.
Yeah, I hear you. We're on the same page there. But
yeah.
You have anything else to add?
Nope.
I think we covered a lot of our bases. We did some categories, and definitely let us know in the comments below, if you agreed, disagreed, who are your biggest winners and losers? Because this draft is everyone has their own opinion on it. It's pretty polarizing. But thank you for tuning in. Please like and subscribe, and we'll catch y'all next week. Peace.